Adam.
Hey, Mark, how's it going? Welcome to Texas.
Great. Thank you. How you doing?
Good, good.
All right, so you wrote us in about a foundation problem.
Yeah, the foundation looks a little odd. I was hoping you might be able to take a look.
Okay, so on my way in, I actually saw the situation I think you're talking about, but let's go out front and check it out.
Great.
All right. All right, Adam, so before we get to the foundation, there's a couple things I want you to notice. You can see this dirt buildup right here, okay? That's runoff, so something's carrying that dirt to this position and then throughout your yard. Another thing I wanted you to notice, under this condenser, we have a condenser pad. The grade on this condenser pad should actually be in this area, not this area. Okay, if you look at this valve cover box right here, again, the grade should be closer to the top of this. I shouldn't have 2 inches of exposure the way I do.
Sure.
And you can see the byproduct of all that is the grade has fallen so much that it's now exposing raw foundation. And that negates the purpose of the stucco because we're trying to dress up that rough concrete. So this problem is relatively easy to fix, but down here, we have a hard concrete foundation. You can actually see the form marks in the work. So this is a wood plank, and a wood plank. We're gonna knock these knobs off later when we come back and re-stucco. But can you notice this crack right here?
Yeah, so is that a structural concern or more just cosmetic?
So minor structural concern, okay? When you have softer material above that's sitting onto this hard concrete, because of expansion and contraction, they move at different rates. Thus, that corner will want to fall off, but that's going to be an easy fix for us as well.
Okay, so if that's not a crack I should be too worried about, what kind of cracks would I see that I'd be really concerned with?
Right, so what I consider a structural crack is if you had a crack, a vertical crack in the foundation working its way all the way up to the top of the foundation and then transfers into the softer material like the brick, that's something we might have to investigate.
Okay, cool, so how do we fix it?
All right, well, we're going to get our tools, we're going to do some mix, and then we're going to do some demo first.
Sounds great, let's do it.
All right, Adam. Okay, Adam, so we're going to be using stucco today, which I consider more of a technique than a product. But for a stucco mix, I like to start with Portland cement. It comes in a 90-pound bag, which is pretty heavy. I use the entire bag. Then I move over to my lime. I use 4 shovelfuls of lime to mix in with my Portland cement. And then, depending on what we're trying to match, I use 20 to 24 shovelfuls of sand. Now, you can look at this sand and know that it's very fine, right? But that's the finish that we're trying to match today. So as you look at your foundation, you can see that's a very fine sand.
Okay.
And I think we've done a good job in matching that. So the effort should be put into matching all materials.
So what about the stucco mixes I see at the store?
So evolution is everywhere, and that is just part of it in my business. They have bags of concrete pre-mixed, they have bags of type N pre-mixed, they have bags of type S pre-mixed. But the stucco is out there, and again, if you were a mason contractor like me, we're usually working on bigger walls, but for a homeowner, you have the stuff that you have, which is really small stuff, and it's probably easier to use a pre-mixed bag. So, good question.
So for homeowners, smaller projects probably could do a pre-mixed bag.
Sure.
And what do we have here?
So this is the most important ingredient to me. This is the bonding agent, for lack of a better term, call it glue. But this goes on before we do the stucco, and it's going to help for the stickability.
Okay.
All right, so we have everything we need. Time to get to work.
Let's do it.
All right, let's go. First thing we're gonna do is peel back some of this grass and dirt. That's gonna allow us to get our trowels a little bit deeper and be able to pull our mortar up and make a full stucco.
I can see some of the stucco coming off right here as I dig.
Oh yeah. Okay, Adam, there are 1 or 2 things that didn't happen here. The most obvious to me is that they didn't use a bonding agent. And the one way we can figure out if they didn't throughout is by what we call tappy tap. So the most important tool that we have to do the tappy tap is actually our ears. So as soon as you hear something hollow, we know we're in trouble. Does that sound solid?
Pretty solid. Hollow.
Hollow there? Okay, so you and I are gonna chase this all the way down, and whatever wants to come, comes off. So the first thing I'm gonna have you do is rub down this wall. You can see these pock marks. Those are left from the forms. They're actually our friend because they're gonna help us bind the stucco coat into this wall. But before you do that, I do want you to knock down these high spots. Take this tool, it's just a rubbing tool, and just knock those out for me. And after you do that, you're gonna create some dust, so I'm gonna get a hose. And because we want to soak this foundation down so it doesn't suck water out of our stucco coat, I'm going to spray everything down and eliminate the dust and for better bonding. Before we apply the bonding agent, we need to start rebuilding the damaged corner. So we're going to wait for that to set up a little bit more before we address it, but that's going to give us time to put the bonder on. So I always like to start from the bottom and work my way up. Very, very important stuff. And if you could actually grab that brush over there, Adam.
Sure.
And just kind of brush behind me. That's why I like to use a sprayer, because I can get in any nook and cranny.
While the bonding agent sets, we'll finish repointing the damaged corner.
All right, Adam, these are the tools that we're going to use. They're called steel trowels. Now, the size of the steel trowels is going to be dictated by our work area. So we have a small work area, so our tools are going to be smaller. This steel trowel can actually grow to about 20 inches or even more sometimes. Again, if we had a bigger wall to do, that's what we'd be using. This smaller trowel is going to help me do areas like this. So I'm going to come down with a smaller trowel like this to do that entire joint. You, on the other hand, are going to take this trowel, you're going to load up with a brick trowel, spread it around, and then you're going to come from the bottom up and you're going to work this material into this break. So you're really going to want to stuff it. And then once you get up here with your trowel, you're going to want to do a little bit of an override. That override is going to be fluff for us, and when we sponge, that's just going to give us more ability to sponge and erase this line.
I see.
So
it'll help it blend more then.
exactly,
Okay.
and that's what we're trying to do. We want to make it look like nothing happened. So why don't you get into that corner, and again, start from the bottom. Now, if you have to use two hands, if you can do it with one, that's great. Okay, good form. There you go. Now you're going to leave it just like that and just keep working your way over. I'm going to take a smaller trowel, which is what we call a margin trowel. And that's going to dress my trowel, but I'm going to work down and again fluff a little. Work it up.
So what are the scratches for?
So what we're doing right now, again, is what we call the scratch coat. So we're going to notch all this stucco, and then it's going to set up a little bit, and then when we come back with our finish coat, the finish coat is going to bind into these scratch marks and just bond a little bit better.
So we're making our own nooks and crannies this time around.
Exactly. And now I'm going to put the finish coat over the scratch coat. So the final thing that we're going to do is we're going to use this sponge float. That's going to help us match the texture that you have existing. So you take this sponge float, and again, you can see how fine that is. You're going to use it in a circular motion. Now, if you don't have a sponge float handy, you can use an average household sponge just like this one, but you do have to make sure the texture of this sponge, again, is going to help us match existing. This is going to help me move material around to where it needs to be. So make sure that your last sweep of the sponge is going to be up over that overrun.
In the final step, replace the dirt we removed in the beginning.
I gotta tell you, Mark, it's a work of art.
All right, Adam, we did a lot of hard work today, right?
Sure did.
Okay, good results. The only thing I'm going to do is leave you with a little bit of homework. What I want you to do in about an hour is take a hose, lightly hydrate this wall.
Okay.
Tomorrow morning, do the same thing. Tomorrow around lunchtime, do the same thing. And then tomorrow evening, hit it again, light water, and you should be good to go after that.
Sounds like some pretty easy homework.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming to Austin.
Okay, thanks, Adam.
Have a
Talk
good
to you.
one.
You too.
Thanks for watching. This Old House has got a video for just about every home improvement project, so be sure to check out the others. And if you like what you see, click on the subscribe button. make sure that you get our newest videos right in your feed.